Rahul loved nature. He loved the feel of the wind in his hair. He loved the smell of the earth after the rain, but the lockdown had kept him trapped inside. For weeks he had only seen the world through his window. One day the government eased restrictions. Rahul was ecstatic. He grabbed his camera and raced outside. He wanted to capture the beauty of the world again. He hiked to his favorite spot, a grassy cliff overlooking the ocean. The sun was setting. The sky was a blaze of orange and purple. It was the perfect moment. Rahul raised his phone to take a selfie. He smiled at the camera, eager to capture the moment. Click. Back home, Rahul scrolled through his photos. He stopped at the selfie. Something was wrong. There was a shadowy figure behind him in the photo. He zoomed in. It looked like a young woman. Her face was pale and gaunt. Her eyes were wide with fear. Rahul shivered. He told himself it was just a trick of the light. He tried to ignore it, but the image was burned into his mind. The woman's eyes seemed to follow him. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. That night, Rahul had a nightmare. The woman from the photo was standing at the foot of his bed. She was crying. She reached out to him, her cold fingers brushing his arm. He woke up with a gasp. His heart was pounding. He could still feel the icy touch on his skin. The next morning, things got stranger. Objects started moving on their own. Lights flickered. Whispers seemed to follow him from room to room. Rahul was terrified. He couldn't escape the feeling that he was being watched. He was trapped in a waking nightmare. At first, Rahul's family didn't believe him. They thought he was stressed from the lockdown. But as the paranormal activity increased, they couldn't deny it any longer. His mother, a devout woman, started performing religious rituals. She lit incense and chanted prayers, but nothing seemed to work. His father, a practical man, tried to find logical explanations. He checked for drafts, faulty wiring, anything that could explain the strange occurrences. He found nothing. The family was falling apart. Fear and suspicion filled the air. Rahul felt a growing sense of dread. He knew he had to do something. Desperate, Rahul's family sought help from priests and spiritual healers. They performed elaborate ceremonies and chanted ancient mantras. But the haunting continued. The spirit's presence grew stronger. It seemed to feed off their fear. Objects flew across the room, doors slammed shut, the temperature dropped suddenly, chilling them to the bone. Rahul was at his wits' end. He was exhausted, both physically and emotionally. He felt responsible for bringing this terror into their lives. He had to find a way to stop it, but how? One day, Rahul stumbled upon an old newspaper article. It was about a young woman who had tragically fallen to her death from the same cliff where he had taken the selfie. The woman's name was Maya. She had been a talented artist, full of life and passion, but one day, her dreams were shattered. She received news that her entire family had died in a car accident. Heartbroken and alone, Maya had gone to the cliff. She wanted to find solace in the beauty of nature. But her grief overwhelmed her. She lost her footing and fell to her death. Reading Maya's story, a wave of guilt washed over Rahul. He realized he had captured her lost soul in his selfie. He had disturbed her final resting place. He knew what he had to do. He had to go back to the cliff. He had to face Maya and ask for her forgiveness. As the sun began to set, Rahul returned to the cliff. He stood at the edge, his heart pounding in his chest. The wind whipped at his clothes as if trying to push him back. He took a deep breath and held up his phone. He looked at Maya's image in the selfie. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "Please forgive me." Suddenly the air grew cold, the wind howled, and then he saw her. Maya's translucent figure materialized before him. Her eyes were filled with a deep sadness. Rahul fought back his fear. "I didn't mean to disturb you," he said, his voice trembling. "I'll do anything to make it right." Maya reached out a hand, her touch icy cold. Rahul closed his eyes, bracing himself. But instead of pain, he felt a strange sense of peace. He opened his eyes. Maya was gone. He looked down at his phone. The selfie was gone too. He had deleted it, hoping to free Maya from her digital prison. As Rahul walked away from the cliff, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The world seemed brighter, the air clearer. He had faced his fear and found redemption. The experience had changed him. He had learned a valuable lesson about respecting the boundaries between the living and the dead. He realized that some moments are not meant to be captured or shared. They are meant to be cherished, respected, and left undisturbed. From that day forward, Rahul continued to embrace his love for nature. But he did so with a newfound respect and reverence. He knew that the world was full of mysteries and that some things are best left unknown.